Welcome back to part 2 in our 5-part series on e-learning. In the 21st century, class is always in session. If you were with me last week, we talked about what e-learning is, and we also discussed what learning styles were involved. So now, are you ready to go back to school and be an A-plus student? E-learning offers great flexibility and freedom to work on your own schedule. But most e-learning, except that done purely for entertainment, requires discipline and responsibility. Certainly if you're part of a peer group or others are depending on you to work together in a collaborative effort. I'm assuming that most everyone here today is a genealogist or family historian. We tend to enjoy learning, whether that's to build on our knowledge base or improve our skills. Unless you have unlimited time and resources, it makes sense to take a look at what you've already done. What types of courses and classes have you already taken? How have you used them? And whether you have any outstanding projects that you want to complete, so you can decide what you want to learn and why, and determine which courses would be the best fit. Do you have a short-term or long-term genealogy educational plan? Whether or not you join a ProGen study group, the book Professional Genealogy has some great assignments, and one of them is to make a genealogy education plan. Our genealogy education plans will change over time, but it's important to give some thought to your plan, get your goals down on paper, and then work your plan to succeed. If you're new to genealogy and want to learn the basics, certain types of e-learning courses would be better for you than others. If you're more advanced and you want to work on accreditation, what areas do you feel are lacking or do you need to brush up on before you make the attempt? Perhaps you have excellent genealogy research skills, but you're simply unable to start writing your family tree. You might need to take some remedial or creative writing courses. By the end of October, make an appointment with yourself to decide what you want to do with your genealogy, and if you'll find any gaps in your knowledge or skills, make a list of the types of courses you want to take and check out the available resources. If my plan included working on the Swedish side of my family and revamping my genealogy blog, I'd need very different skills for those activities. I'd also need to prioritize them. Look for e-learning courses that would teach me how to do each of them, and then I'd also have to decide how much time and effort I want to put into those projects and plan accordingly. Unless you're listening to podcasts, watching webinars, or attending online courses simply to fill up the day, and that's perfectly fine, most of us plan to use what we've learned. But do we? We have the best of intentions, but our schedules and competing responsibilities often get in the way of us putting what we learn into practice. Let's test that out. How many of you listening today can remember the webinars you attended last month? Do you remember what the topics of the webinars were? Do you recall who presented at the webinars? Did you take notes during the webinars? Can you recall, either from memory or your notes, 3 takeaways or aha moments in any of those webinars? Did you download the handouts if any were available? Are you able to access those notes and the handout today? And if so, how long does it take you to find them? Have you reviewed any of the handouts since the webinars? Did any of the webinars have a call to action that you can remember? And if so, what was it? Perhaps it was to come up with a research plan, or use a particular record set, or write something up for your family history. Did you do it? If you did, great. If you didn't, then you're like many of us. Even with good intentions, without a plan in place and making a conscious effort to use what we learn, we either waste that opportunity or don't realize as much of a benefit as we could have. So, are you a viewer or a doer? By planning and setting aside time for education, understanding the requirements of a course and engaging in the learning process, by doing the work required and processing the information presented, by applying the theory to practice with real-world application, by then evaluating what worked and didn't as between the theory and the practice, and making the necessary adjustments. And finally, by testing ourselves against a self-imposed or a standardized examination, we engage in the cycle of learning. If we make no effort to do anything more than the first 3 portions on this cycle, we end up being viewers, not doers. Now I have a few suggestions for negotiating that schoolyard. Just last month, in September, there were 46 hours of e-learning opportunities listed on the Genia Webinars calendar, 8 hours of genealogy education hangouts on Google+, and several Twitter chats. Attending online presentations and courses could be more than a full-time job. Ask yourself, what do you need to learn now? What will help you with your family history research today and in the near future? Keep in mind, you gain knowledge in pieces over time. The chances are very good that the information being offered today will be offered again and will be updated at that time. If that topic or information is not important to you today, attend it in the future when it is important to you. Just because a webinar or hangout or a course does not charge a fee, that doesn't mean it's free. So be a discerning student. Make a decision about that webinar or online course based on whether you think you'll get something of value for your time. Is it a good investment of your time, and will that investment pay a dividend in usefulness? It's a fact of life. There are going to be presenters that you enjoy and learn from, and there will be other presenters that you simply won't mesh with. If the presentation is short, if the handout or resources are well prepared, or if the subject matter is only taught by that one person, you'll simply have to deal with it. But today, there are so many different opportunities and presenters that I encourage you to find instructors you enjoy. It will make the learning process that much easier and entertaining. And this is where a log or personal transcript comes in handy. If you keep track of the e-learning you engage in and what your thoughts were about it, you'll have a list of courses, instructors, and topics to keep in mind and perhaps even share with others. I originally saw this idea over at Jill Ball's blog at geniusblogspot.com. Jill has a continuing genealogical development learning log and lists the learning activities she takes part in, both online and offline. Sometimes she simply lists the activity, other times she lists what she learned, and almost always she has a link to the activity. Jill has done this since October 2009, and her list includes webinars, short and long online courses, user group meetings, blog talk radio shows, cruise ship courses, workshops, podcasts, and hangouts. The interesting thing about her CGD log is that you can see the various topics and skills Jill has been interested in learning about over time, and how those interests have changed, the repeat presenters, and the variety of learning methods. I encourage everyone who's using e-learning to put together their own log. Whether you put it online, as Jill does, or keep it for yourself, it's a good way to have an inventory of your educational studies. If you don't want to keep it at your blog or website, you could just as easily use an Excel workbook or use a template in Evernote or OneNote, whatever your preferred note-taking or record-keeping system is. I use Excel, and my worksheet includes the following: the date, the title, the presenter, the organization, the link to the course, the link to any handout or notes, any action items, a follow-up date, and my comments. Using this format, I can gauge which types of courses I get the most from, which presenters I mesh with, and what notes and handouts I can go back to when I'm ready to do something with what I learned. Whatever method you use, put something together that helps you recall what you've been doing to continue your genealogical and family history education. How much free time do you have? We all have work, family, and personal obligations. How much time do you want to devote to your family history? And how much of that time do you want to focus on education versus research and group or volunteer projects? It's important not to get overextended with your educational choices. Taking on something that you can't give the proper time or attention to will only make you less likely to take courses in the future. Start small and get the basics in so you have a good foundation for additional courses. Give yourself the time necessary to use what you learn. For the most part, a 1-hour class requires an additional 3 hours of your time. We need to review the lesson by reviewing our notes, any handouts, and filling in any blanks from what we might have missed during the presentation. We need to pick a few items to act on and put into practice what we learned. The best way to learn something is to practice it. Use what we've learned, maybe teach someone else, blog about it, update our research based on it. Whatever we do, we need to use it because practice makes memory. And variety will help keep things fresh, so be willing to mix things up where your education is concerned. Attend hangouts and be an active participant. Read blog posts, watch YouTube videos, attend webinars, learn new technology. Try an online course in a subject that is new to you. Go back and listen to some skill-building family history podcasts to remind yourself of the basic building blocks of genealogy, or offer to share your research plan and report with a fellow genealogist and provide and receive peer review. I'll see you back here next Tuesday when we discuss finding e-learning opportunities, what's available, where to find it, and how to use it. And in the meantime, be sure to download the PDF handout that has all the links for the various resources we'll be discussing over the next 2 weeks, and we might even add a few more to the mix. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks for joining us.